The stars were cold and silent in the Helian corridor. For 90 days, no human ship had crossed this part of space. The Veth Collective made sure of that. Captain Tae-woo stood at the window of the space station and looked at the distant lights. Somewhere beyond those lights, past the enemy blockade, was the colony world of New Busan. 12 million people lived there. His daughter was one of them. "Sir, Command has made their decision," said Lieutenant Hannah Q. She walked up beside him with a tablet in her hands. Her face was tight with anger she tried to hide. "They say a rescue mission is not possible. They have written off New Busan." Tae did not move. He kept looking at the stars. "Read it to me." Hannah looked at the tablet. Strategic assessment indicates 0% chance of successful breach. The battle zone contains over 200 Veth warships. 17 human vessels have attempted crossing in the past 90 days. All 17 were destroyed. We cannot risk more lives on a mission that cannot succeed. "Cannot succeed," Tae repeated quietly. "Sir, what do we do now?" Tae finally turned away from the window. His eyes were hard like stone. "We succeed anyway." The Veth Collective had built something terrible around New Busan. They called it the battle zone. It was a sphere of death. Sensor satellites watched every direction. Weapons platforms floated in the darkness, ready to fire. Patrol fleets moved in careful patterns, their ships overlapping each other's coverage. Nothing could get through. Nothing had gotten through. The colony was dying slowly. 3 months without supply ships meant 3 months without medicine, without food shipments, without hope. The Veth did not need to invade. They just needed to wait. Tae walked through the corridors of the station until he reached the docking bay. There, connected to the station by thick cables and fuel lines, was the UENS Iron Dawn. She was an old warship. Her hull was scarred from battles fought 20 years ago. Command had scheduled her for decommissioning next month. She was supposed to be melted down and recycled. Tae looked at the old ship and saw something different. He saw a possibility. "She still has teeth," said a voice behind him. He turned to find Dr. Mina Yoon standing there. She was the station's chief engineer, a small woman with oil stains on her uniform and fire in her eyes. "I have been working on something. Something that might help, tell me." Mina led him inside the Iron Dawn. The ship smelled of metal and recycled air. They walked through narrow corridors until they reached the engineering section. There, spread across a workbench, were pieces of strange equipment. "Modified hull plating," Mina explained. "It can absorb enemy sensor signals and send them back changed. To their computers, we will look like empty space, like a ghost. Does it work?" Mina hesitated. "I do not know. It has never been tested in real conditions. It might overload. It might explode. It might do nothing at all, but it might work. Yes, it might work." Tae nodded slowly. "Install it." Word spread through the station. Captain Tae-woo was going to attempt the impossible. He was going to breach the battle zone with one old ship and a prototype stealth system. Most people thought he was crazy. Some people thought he was brave. A few people asked to come with him. Sergeant Daesu was the first volunteer. He was the head of the station's marine unit. A big man with scars on his hands and a reputation for never leaving anyone behind. "My brother is on New Busan," he said simply. "I am going." Then came Ensign Jin Park, a young pilot fresh from the academy. He had no family on New Busan. He had no special reason to go. When Tae asked him why, Jin just shrugged. "Someone has to fly the ship. I am the best pilot here." One by one, volunteers came forward. Engineers, gunners, medical staff, soldiers. They knew the odds. They knew that 17 ships had already tried and failed. They came anyway. Hannah was the last to join. She found Tae in the captain's quarters of the Iron Dawn, studying maps of the battle zone. "You know this is suicide," she said. "Probably. The Veth have 200 warships. We have one. Yes. Our stealth system has never been tested. Our ship is old. Our crew is small." Tae looked up from his maps. "Is there a question in there somewhere, Lieutenant?" Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled just a little. "No, sir. I just wanted to make sure you understood. I will be your tactical officer. It worked for 3 days straight. Mina installed the stealth plating while her team repaired every system on the ship. Day trained his Marines in the cargo bay, practicing close combat over and over. Jin spent hours in the simulator, flying impossible patterns through enemy formations. On the 4th day, they were ready. The Iron Dawn undocked from the station and drifted into open space. Tay stood on the bridge, surrounded by his crew. The view screen showed the distant glow of the battle zone. A message came through from command. It was Admiral Song, the highest officer in the sector. His face was grim on the screen. Captain Tay, I am ordering you to stand down. This mission is not authorized. Respect, Admiral. I'm going anyway. Will be court-martialed. Your crew will be discharged. You are throwing away your careers. Tay looked at his crew, Hanaday, Mina, Jin, all the others. They looked back at him with steady eyes. Nobody moved to turn back. Admiral Tay said, "There are 12 million people on New Busan. They have been waiting 90 days for someone to come. I am not going to make them wait anymore." The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, his expression changed. The hardness in his face softened into something that might have been respect. "You are on your own, Captain. We cannot help you. We cannot send reinforcements." Paused. "Godspeed, Iron Dawn." The transmission ended. Tay turned to his crew. "Set course for the battle zone. Maximum speed." The old warship's engines roared to life. The Iron Dawn began to move, carrying 53 souls toward 200 enemy ships. The odds were impossible. The mission was madness. But somewhere beyond those enemy lines, 12 million people were waiting for a miracle, and Captain Tae-woo intended to give them one. The Iron Dawn moved through the darkness of space like a knife through water. Inside the ship, the crew prepared for what was coming. They had 3 days before they reached the outer edge of the battle. Zone. 3 days to turn an impossible mission into something that might actually work, Lieutenant. Hannah Q stood in the briefing room with a holographic map floating in the air before her. The map showed the battle zone in terrible detail. Red dots marked enemy ships. Yellow lines showed patrol routes. Blue areas indicated sensor coverage. There was almost no empty space. The Veth had built their trap well. "This is what we are facing," Hannah said to the gathered crew. 217 warships. 43 weapons platforms. Over 1,000 sensor satellites. The Veth rotate their patrols every 47 hours. During the rotation, there is a small window where coverage drops in Sector 7. "How small?" asked Day. 12 minutes. The room went quiet. 12 minutes to cross a killing field that had destroyed 17 ships. It seemed impossible, but Hannah was not finished. "We are not going to fight our way through. We are going to ghost through." She tapped the map, and a thin green line appeared. It wound between the red dots like a snake through rocks. "I call this the Ghost Run." She explained the plan. Phase 1 was the approach. They would come in during the patrol rotation, using the chaos of ships changing positions to hide their approach. Phase 2 was the debris field. 17 human ships had died in the battle zone. Their wreckage still floated in space. The Iron Dawn would use that wreckage as cover, moving from one piece to another like stepping stones across a river. "Phase 3 is the sprint," Hannah continued. "Once we clear the debris field, we run. Full power to engines. Dr. Mina's stealth system should hide us from their sensors, but we will only have minutes before they figure out something is wrong." "And Phase 4? Jin asked. Hannah's face was hard. "If we are detected, we fight. We do not stop. We do not retreat. We push through or we die trying." Captain Tay nodded slowly. "Good plan. Simple. Dangerous. I like it." Down in the engine room, Mina was working on the stealth system. Sparks flew from her welding tool as she connected the last pieces of modified plating to the ship's hull. Her team worked around her, checking connections and running power tests. "The system is ready," she reported to Tay when he came to check on her. "But I must warn you, this technology was never meant for a ship this size. The power drain will be enormous. If we use it for too long, the reactor might overload. Maybe 2 hours. Maybe less. I cannot be certain. Tay put his hand on her shoulder. That is enough time. You did good work, Doctor. Mina smiled tiredly. I hope so. I really hope so. In the cargo bay, Day was training his Marines. 20 soldiers moved through combat drills with smooth precision. They practiced firing in zero gravity. They practiced fighting in narrow corridors. They practiced what to do if enemy troops boarded the ship. The Veth are bigger than us, Day told his soldiers. They are stronger. Their armor is thicker. But they fight like machines. They follow patterns. They do what their commanders tell them. He slammed his fist into his palm. We are different. We adapt. We improvise. We do not follow patterns. That is how we win. One of the Marines, a young woman named Yuri, raised her hand. Sergeant, what if they breach the hull? What if they cut off sections of the ship? Day grinned. It was not a friendly grin. Then we make them pay for every meter. We fight in the corridors. We fight in the rooms. We fight until we cannot fight anymore. And then we fight some more. Meanwhile, Ensign Jin was in the flight simulator. Sweat ran down his face as he guided a virtual ship through an impossible maze of enemy fire. Warning lights flashed. Alarms screamed. He died for the 15th time that day. Again, he said, restarting the simulation. The virtual battle zone appeared around him. Enemy ships closed in from all directions. Jin's hands moved over the controls with desperate speed. He rolled the ship sideways, barely avoiding a missile. He cut the engines, letting the ship drift through a gap in enemy formation. He pushed the throttle forward and burst through the other side. The simulation ended. He had survived. For the first time, he had survived. Jin leaned back in his chair and laughed. It was a tired, relieved laugh. Maybe this was possible after all. On the bridge, Tay received a troubling report. Their long-range sensors had detected a small Veth drone following them at a distance. They know we are coming, Hannah said. It does not matter. They knew ships were coming before 17 times. They still failed. Tay studied the sensor reading. The Veth will expect us to act like the other ships. Careful. Cautious, trying to sneak through without being seen. That is what we are doing, sir. No, Tay smiled grimly. That is what we want them to think we are doing. But when they find us, and they will find us, we will not run. We will attack. We will do what no human ship has done before. We will charge straight at them. Hannah stared at him. That is insane. Yes, that is why it might work. The night before they reached the battle zone, Tay called the entire crew together. 53 people gathered in the main hall, standing shoulder to shoulder. They were engineers and soldiers, pilots and doctors, young and old. They had chosen to be here. They had chosen to risk everything. Tay looked at their faces. He saw fear there, but he also saw determination. He saw hope. I am not going to lie to you, he said. Many of us will not survive this. The odds are against us. The enemy is stronger. By every logical measure, we should fail. He paused. But the Veth do not understand something about humans. They think we calculate acceptable losses. They think we give up when the numbers are bad. He shook his head. They are wrong. We do not leave our people behind. Ever. Those 12 million souls on New Busan are waiting for us. They have been waiting for 90 days. And tomorrow, we are going to tell them that they are not forgotten. The crew was silent. Then Day started clapping. Mina joined him, Jin, Hannah, one by one. Every person in the room began to applaud. Outside the ship, stars wheeled slowly past the windows. The battle zone waited ahead, a wall of death and fire. But inside the Iron Dawn, something powerful had been born. Hope, determination, the stubborn human refusal to accept the impossible. Tomorrow, they would breach the battle zone. Tomorrow, they would make the Veth understand what humanity truly was, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Iron Dawn crossed into the battle zone at 0300 hours. The moment they passed the outer boundary, everything changed. The stars seemed darker here. The silence felt heavier. Death was all around them, invisible, but waiting. Stealth system active, Mina reported from engineering. Her voice was tight with tension. So far, so good. They cannot see us. On the bridge, Hannah watched the sensor display. Red dots moved across the screen in slow patterns. Enemy patrol ships, hundreds of them, gliding through the darkness. The closest one was only 50 kilometers away. Patrol rotation beginning, she said quietly. We have our window. Ensign Jin, take us in. Jin's hands moved over the flight controls. The Iron Dawn slipped forward, engines running at minimum power. They moved like a shadow, silent and unseen. The first patrol line passed above them without stopping. The second line passed below. They were through. Captain Tay did not allow himself to relax. This was only the beginning. The debris field appeared on their sensors 30 minutes later. It was a graveyard of human ships. Twisted metal floated in the void. Broken hulls spun slowly, their lights dead, their crews long gone. These were the 17 ships that had tried before. This was what failure looked like. There, Hannah pointed at the screen. The Yoon's Valor. We can use her wreckage as cover. Gin guided the Iron Dawn toward the destroyed ship. The Valor had been a cruiser once, fast and proud. Now she was nothing but torn metal and frozen memories. They slipped into her shadow and waited. A Veth patrol passed within 5 kilometers. The alien ship was long and black, covered with sensor dishes and weapon ports. It moved with mechanical precision, following its programmed route. The Iron Dawn held perfectly still. The patrol passed. They had not been seen. Moving to next position, Jin said. He was sweating, but his voice was steady. They moved from wreck to wreck like this for 2 hours. Each time, they waited in the shadow of destroyed ships while patrols passed nearby. Each time, they held their breath and prayed that Mina's stealth system would hold in the engine room. Mina watched her instruments with growing worry. The stealth system was working, but it was draining power faster than she had predicted. The reactor temperature was climbing. Warning lights were starting to flicker. Captain, we have a problem, she called to the bridge. The system is overheating. We have maybe 40 minutes before it fails completely. Tay's voice came back, calm and steady. Understood. Jin, increase speed. We cannot wait anymore. The Iron Dawn left the debris field and entered open space. There was no more cover here. Only the stealth system stood between them and detection. Jin pushed the engines harder. The old ship surged forward. 20 minutes passed. 30. The stealth system screamed with strain, but it held. They were so close now. The inner defense line was just ahead. Beyond it was clear space and New Bussin. Then everything went wrong. A small malfunction in the port engine sent a burst of radiation into space. It lasted only half a second, but that was enough. A Veth sensor satellite picked up the signal and transmitted an alert. We have been pinged, Hannah said, her voice sharp with alarm. A patrol is changing course. They are coming to investigate. Tay looked at the tactical display. One ship, a destroyer class. It was fast, but they could handle it. Can we reach the inner line before they intercept? No, sir. They will catch us in 15 minutes. Then we fight. The Veth destroyer closed in quickly. On its bridge, Warcast Drail watched his sensors with confusion. There was something there, a ghost in the darkness, but his computers could not identify it. No human ship had ever penetrated this deep into the battle zone. It should be impossible. Scan again, he ordered. Find it. His crew worked their instruments. The ghost flickered in and out of their sensors, never quite solid, never quite visible. Drell was growing frustrated. He was the best hunter in the collective. He would not be beaten by shadows. On the Iron Dawn, Hannah made her decision. They will detect us soon. We need to destroy them before they can transmit our position. Can we do it quietly? Tay asked. One shot. Maximum power to forward weapons. If we hit their communication array first, they cannot call for help. Tay nodded. Do it. The Iron Dawn's weapons powered up in silence. Every gun on the ship pointed at the approaching destroyer. Jin made tiny adjustments to their course, lining up the perfect shot. "Fire," Tay commanded. The ship shuddered as every weapon fired at once. A storm of energy and metal crossed the void in an instant. The Veth destroyer never saw it coming. The first shots destroyed their communications. The next shots destroyed everything else. The alien ship broke apart in a flash of fire and light. Debris scattered across space. Silence returned. But they had not been fast enough. A partial transmission had escaped before the communication array died. It was only a fragment, a few seconds of data, but it was enough. The Veth knew someone was inside the battle zone. Overlord Kethra received the alert on his flagship. He stared at the data with disbelief. One ship. One human ship had penetrated his perfect defense. Impossible. "Find them," he ordered, his voice cold with fury. "Find them and destroy them." Across the battle zone, alarms began to sound. Patrol ships changed course. Weapons platforms powered up. The entire Veth fleet mobilized for the hunt. "On the Iron Dawn," Mina's voice came over the intercom. "Stealth system is dead. The overload burned out the circuits. They can see us now." Tay looked at the tactical display. Red dots were converging from every direction. 40 ships. Maybe more. The whole fleet was coming for them. Hannah's face was pale, but her voice was steady. "Orders, Captain?" Tay smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had accepted his fate and decided to meet it standing up. Full power to engines. All weapons ready. He gripped the rail in front of him. They wanted a fight. Let us give them one. The Iron Dawn's engines roared. The old warship surged forward, straight toward the enemy lines. Behind them, 40 Veth warships followed. The real battle was about to begin. The Iron Dawn burned through space with fire trailing from her engines. Behind her, 40 Veth warships followed in perfect formation. They were faster. They were stronger. By every measure of military power, the humans should already be dead. But Captain Taewoo had no intention of dying. "Not yet, Ensign Jin. Bring us about," he ordered. "Turn and face them." The bridge crew stared at him in shock. They had been running. Everyone expected them to keep running. Instead, they were going to attack. Jin did not hesitate. His hands moved over the controls, and the Iron Dawn spun in space. Her bow swung toward the enemy fleet. Her weapons locked onto the lead ships. "They expect us to run," Tay said quietly. "That is what prey does. But we are not prey. We are hunters. Fire everything." The Iron Dawn unleashed hell. Every weapon on the ship fired at once. Missiles screamed through the void. Energy beams cut through the darkness. The lead Veth ships had no time to react. Their shields flickered and died. Their hulls cracked and split. 3 ships exploded in the first volley. Then the Iron Dawn plunged into the enemy formation. Jin flew like a man possessed. He rolled the ship between enemy fire, using angles and speeds that no computer could predict. The Veth tactical systems could not track them. Their targeting computers kept missing, unable to calculate where the human ship would be next. "They fight like machines," Hannah called out, working her tactical console. "They follow patterns. Break their patterns, and they do not know what to do." Another Veth ship exploded. Then another. The Iron Dawn tore through the formation, leaving destruction in her wake. 8 enemy ships died in the first pass. On his flagship, Overlord Kethra watched in disbelief. His fleet outnumbered the humans 40 to 1. They had better weapons, better shields, better ships, and yet they were losing. "Their tactics make no sense," Warcastrel reported. "They are not trying to escape. They are attacking. They are throwing themselves at us." "Impossible," Kethra said. "No rational species would behave this way." "They are not rational," Drell replied grimly. "They are human." Drell made a decision. If they could not destroy the human ship with weapons, they would board it. He gathered his elite shock troops and launched toward the Iron Dawn in a fast assault craft. Sergeant. Day was waiting for them. The Veth boarding. Craft latched onto the Iron Dawns. HULL, and cut through the metal with plasma torches. Alien soldiers poured into the ship, tall and armored, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. They expected easy prey. They found Day's Marines. The first wave of Veth died in seconds. The narrow corridors of the human ship became killing fields. Day soldiers knew every corner, every shadow, every place to hide and shoot. The aliens fell one after another, but more kept coming. Too many. The Marines were pushed back, fighting for every meter. Soldiers fell on both sides. The corridors filled with smoke and screams. Day found himself face to face with Warcast Drell. The alien commander was huge. Twice the size of a human, covered in armor that could stop bullets. He carried a blade that hummed with energy. "You cannot win, human," Drell said. "Your ship is dying. Your people are dying. Surrender." Day spat blood on the deck. "Surrender is not a word we know." They charged at each other. Drell was faster, stronger, better armed. His blade slashed down with killing force. But Day was not there anymore. He had ducked under the swing and driven his combat knife into the gap in Drell's armor. The alien roared in pain. He swung again, but Day kept moving, kept stabbing, kept fighting. They crashed through walls and doors, leaving a trail of destruction. Finally, Day found his opening. He grabbed a fallen Veth weapon and fired it point blank into Drell's face. The Warcast fell. "That is for my brother," Day whispered. Then he collapsed against the wall, his body covered in wounds. On the bridge, the situation was desperate. The Iron Dawn had destroyed 12 enemy ships, but she had paid a terrible price. Half the crew was dead. Entire decks were open to vacuum. Fire burned in the lower sections. The ship was dying. Hannah was at her station when the explosion hit. A piece of metal slammed into her back. She fell, blood spreading across the deck. Tay caught her before she hit the ground. "Keep fighting," she whispered. "Do not stop." "We are almost there." Dr. Mina's voice came over the intercom, broken with static. "Captain, the reactor is failing. I can give you 1 more hour, maybe less. After that, we are dead in space." Tay looked at the tactical display. They had broken through the main fleet, but the inner defense line was still ahead. 12 Veth capital ships blocked. The way to New Busan, each one was 10 times. The size of the Iron Dawn, each one could destroy them with a single shot, and the Iron Dawn had almost nothing left. Jin turned to the captain. The young pilot's face was burned, his uniform torn, but his eyes were still steady. "Sir, what are your orders?" Tay was quiet for a long moment. He looked at his dying ship, his wounded crew, the impossible odds ahead. Any sane commander would surrender. Any rational officer would accept defeat. But Tay was not thinking about sanity or rationality. He was thinking about 12 million people waiting in the darkness. He was thinking about his daughter. He was thinking about the promise he had made. "Open a channel," he said. "Broadcast on all frequencies." Jin did as he was ordered. The channel opened. Every radio in the system could hear what came next. Tay spoke, his voice rough but strong. "New Busan, this is Captain Tae Woo of the UENS Iron Dawn. We came for you. We are coming home." Across the colony world, people stopped what they were doing. They had heard the distant sounds of battle. They had seen the flashes of light in the sky. For hours, they had wondered what was happening. Now they knew. Someone had come. Someone had not forgotten them, in shelters and homes. In hospitals and factories, 12 million people heard those words. And for the first time in 90 days, they felt hope. The Iron Dawn limped toward the inner defense line. Her engines were failing. Her weapons were almost empty. But she was still moving, still fighting. The 12 Veth capital ships moved to intercept. Overlord Kethra himself commanded the lead ship. He watched the human vessel approach and felt something he had never felt before. Fear, not of the ship. The Iron Dawn was broken, barely alive. One good shot would destroy it forever. No, Kethra feared something else. He feared what this moment represented. He feared what it meant that these humans would not stop, would not surrender, would not die quietly. He feared what would come next. "Destroy them," he ordered. Now the capital ships powered their weapons. The Iron Dawn flew toward them alone and dying. The final battle was about to begin. The Iron Dawn drifted toward the 12 capital ships like a wounded animal walking into a den of wolves. Her engines sputtered and died. Her lights flickered. She had nothing left. On the bridge, Captain Tay watched the enemy ships power their weapons. Massive guns swung toward them, enough firepower to destroy a planet. This was the end. He knew it. Everyone knew it. A communication came through. Overlord Kethra's face appeared on the screen. The alien leader looked at Tay with cold eyes. "You have fought well, human. Better than any species we have conquered before. But now it is over. Surrender your ship, and I will let your crew live. You have my word." Tay looked around the bridge. Jin sat at his console, bleeding from a wound on his head. Mina had come up from engineering, her hands burned and her face pale. Hannah lay on a stretcher nearby, barely conscious, but still alive. These were his people. They had given everything. They deserved to live. But then Tay thought about New Busan. 12 million people waiting for help that would never come. His daughter, looking up at the sky, hoping her father would keep his promise. He could not surrender. He would not. "You do not understand humans, Overlord," Tay said quietly. "We did not come here to win. We came here to show them they are not forgotten. Even if we die today, they will know someone tried. And that is enough." Kethra's expression did not change. "Then you choose death." "No. I choose hope." Kethra cut the transmission. His weapons began to charge for the final shot. The Iron Dawn had seconds to live. Then the sensors went crazy. New contacts appeared all across the system. Not Veth ships. Human ships. Dozens of them. From behind the moon of New Busan, civilian vessels emerged. Mining ships with plasma cutters attached to their hulls. Cargo haulers loaded with explosive containers. Personal yachts with hunting rifles bolted to their frames. They were not warships. They were barely armed at all, but they were human. And they were fighting. A woman's voice came over the radio. It was Nari back, the colony administrator. "Iron Dawn, this is New Busan. We heard your message. We are not going to sit here and watch you die alone. We are coming." Tay stared at the screen in disbelief. They are civilians. They cannot fight capital ships. But the colonists did not seem to care about what they could or could not do. They poured out of hiding and attacked the Veth fleet with everything they had. Mining lasers cut into enemy shields. Cargo containers full of fuel exploded against alien hulls. The colonists flew with no training, no formation, no tactics at all. They flew with pure, desperate rage. It was chaos. Beautiful, terrible chaos. "They are insane," Hannah whispered from her stretcher. "They are human." More ships appeared. Smugglers who had been hiding in the asteroid belt. Refugee vessels that had been too scared to run the blockade. A damaged military patrol ship that everyone thought had been destroyed weeks ago. They all came. They all fought. Overlord Kethra's perfect formation shattered. His tactical systems could not process the chaos. Civilian ships were ramming his destroyers. Mining vessels were drilling holes in his cruisers. A pleasure yacht exploded against his own flagship's shields. "What are they doing?" he demanded. "This is madness. They cannot win." But they were winning. Not by tactics. Not by strength. By sheer stubborn refusal to die. In the engine room of the Iron Dawn, Mina did something impossible. She rerouted power from every non-essential system. Life support went to minimum. Lights went dark. Everything that could be shut down was shut down, and all that power went to the weapons. "Captain," she reported, her voice shaking with exhaustion. "You have one shot. One full power blast. Use it well." Tay looked at the tactical display. Kethra's flagship was damaged but still fighting. If they could destroy it, the Veth command structure would collapse. The blockade would fall. "Jin," he said. "Can you get us close enough?" Jin's hands moved over the controls. The Iron Dawn's engines coughed and sputtered back to life. "Close enough for what, sir?" "Close enough that we cannot miss." The Iron Dawn lurched forward. She moved like a dying beast, making one last charge. Enemy fire slammed into her hull. Sections exploded. Crew members died. But she kept moving. Closer. Closer. Kethra saw them coming. He finally understood what humans were. Not enemies. Not obstacles. Something far more dangerous. They were beings who would not stop. Beings who did not calculate acceptable losses. Beings who would sacrifice everything for their own kind. "They are not rational," he whispered. "What are they?" The Iron Dawn fired. Everything the ship had left went into that one shot. A beam of pure energy struck Kethra's flagship dead center. The Veth shields collapsed. The hull cracked. The reactor went critical. The flagship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the entire system. For a moment, Veth ships paused, their commanders dead, their orders gone. Human vessels held position, waiting, hoping. Then the Veth fleet began to retreat. It started with the smaller ships, the ones furthest from the battle. They turned and ran. Then the cruisers. Then the destroyers. One by one, the Veth forces fled. Their perfect blockade shattered by one old warship and a fleet of desperate civilians. On the Iron Dawn, Tay collapsed into his chair. Around him, his surviving crew began to cheer. Weak, exhausted cheers, but cheers nonetheless. "We did it," Jin said, tears running down his face. "We actually did it." The Iron Dawn limped toward New Busan, barely holding together. Civilian ships flanked her, protecting her like she had protected them. When she finally entered orbit, her engines gave out completely. She would never fly again, but she had done enough. On the surface, 12 million people gathered to watch the broken warship pass overhead. They cheered and cried and held each other. 90 days of darkness were over. Hope had returned. Tay was carried off the ship on a stretcher. Mina walked beside him, her burned hands wrapped in bandages. Day was wheeled out on a medical bed, alive but badly wounded. Jin followed, limping but smiling, and there, waiting on the landing pad, was a young girl. She was maybe 10 years old, with her father's eyes and her mother's smile. "Dad," she said, running toward him. "You came." Tay held his daughter tight. He could not speak. He did not need to. 3 days later, Earth's main fleet arrived. They had heard about the Iron Dawn's breach. They had heard about the colonists' uprising. Inspired by humanity's refusal to accept the impossible, they had launched a full counteroffensive. The battle zone collapsed completely within 48 hours. A Veth diplomatic envoy arrived a week later to discuss peace terms. They wanted to understand. They needed to know. "What drives you to such extremes?" They asked. "Your actions were illogical. You should have calculated acceptable losses and withdrawn." Earth's representative Nari Bak smiled. "You blockaded 12 million of our people. You thought we would write them off? But humans do not abandon each other. We do not calculate acceptable losses. We calculate what is necessary, and then we do it." The Veth never threatened human space again. Years later, Iron Dawn was restored and placed in permanent orbit above New Busan. She became a monument to human determination. Every year, on the anniversary of the breach, the colonists gathered to broadcast the same words that Captain Tay had spoken. "We came for you. We are coming home." And somewhere in the galaxy, other species began to hear stories. Stories about the humans who would not quit. Stories about the ship that breached an impossible blockade. Stories about a people who would sacrifice everything for their own kind. The Veth added a warning to their first contact protocols. If you encounter humans, do not threaten their civilians. Do not besiege their colonies. Do not separate them from each other. They are not rational. They are relentless, and they will come for their own. Always, in the end. That was what made humanity different. Not technology. Not tactics. Not strength. Just the simple, stubborn refusal to leave anyone behind, ever.